Picture the Canadian prairies in the 1930s, a landscape of endless wheat fields turned to dust, swept away by relentless winds. This was the Great Depression, a global economic collapse that hit Canada hard, leaving millions unemployed and struggling. But out in the prairies, in Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba, the crisis was magnified by an environmental disaster known as the Dust Bowl. They called it the Dirty 30s, a decade when the prairies faced not just poverty, but a fight for survival against nature itself. The Dust Bowl wasn't just a regular drought, it was a catastrophe. Years of dry weather, starting around 1930, sucked the moisture from the soil. Farmers had spent decades plowing up the native grasslands to plant wheat, leaving the land vulnerable. Without deep-rooted grasses or windbreaks, the topsoil turned to powder and blew away in massive dust storms. In Saskatchewan and Alberta, crops didn't just start to die, they vanished. Grasshoppers swarmed the fields, devouring the little that did grow, while hailstorms and scorching heat finished the job. Farmers stood helpless as their livelihood crumbled. The economic toll was devastating, especially in Saskatchewan, the heart of Canada's wheat belt. Wheat was king, but in the 1930s, its price crashed to historic lows, sometimes as little as 35 cents a bushel, down from over $2 in the 1920s. A 1961 report estimated Saskatchewan lost $668 million in wheat production during the worst drought year, likely 1933 to 1934. To put that in perspective, the province's entire agricultural income plummeted by 90% in just 2 years. Imagine earning a tenth of what you did just 2 years ago. Most families couldn't survive it. By 1936, 66% of Saskatchewan's rural population, over 600,000 people, depended on government relief, often just $5 a month per family. Alberta and Manitoba weren't far behind, with entire communities teetering on bankruptcy. For prairie farmers, the Dust Bowl was only half the battle. Many had borrowed heavily in the 1920s, buying land and machinery on credit, banking on good harvests to pay off their debts. But with crops gone and prices in free fall, those debts became anchors. Banks and creditors moved in, foreclosing on farms across the prairies. Exact numbers are hard to come by, but in the US, a third of farmers lost their land between 1929 and 1933. And Canada's prairies likely faced similar losses. In Saskatchewan alone, thousands of farms were abandoned or repossessed. Families who'd poured their lives into their land were forced to walk away, often with nothing but a suitcase. Between 1931 and 1941, about 250,000 people, mostly from Saskatchewan, fled the prairies, heading to cities like Calgary, Regina, or even as far as British Columbia's Okanagan Valley or Ontario's industrial centers. These weren't just farmers, they were environmental refugees, driven out by a land that could no longer sustain them. As farmers left, entire communities collapsed. Small towns that had sprung up to serve farming families, places like Nemiskyn in Alberta or Flowerdale in Saskatchewan, became ghost towns. By the mid-1930s, general stores closed, schools emptied, and churches stood silent. The Saskatchewan Ghost Town Trail today maps over 30 of these abandoned places, each one a testament to the Dust Bowl's toll. Take Orion, Saskatchewan, once a bustling hub with a hotel and a grain elevator. It was nearly deserted by the 1940s. And then there's the human cost. Families like the McDonalds in southern Saskatchewan saw their savings disappear. They'd invested everything in their farm, only to watch dust storms bury the crops and creditors take their land. Relief programs offered some help, but it was barely enough. $5 a month might buy a sack of flour, not much else. Women and children often went hungry, while men took to riding the rails, hopping freight trains to find work in cities or coastal farms. The desperation fueled anger too. In Alberta, the social credit movement rose, promising to protect farmers from banks and creditors. In Saskatchewan, farmers pushed for the Farm Security Act to stop foreclosures, though it came a little too late for many. The Dust Bowl and Great Depression changed the prairies forever. The crisis exposed the risk of betting everything on one crop and ignoring land limits. Farmers learned hard lessons, adopting dry farming techniques like crop rotation, and contour plowing to conserve soil. The federal government stepped in, creating the Prairie Farm Rehabilitation Administration in 1935 to promote irrigation and sustainable practices. Social welfare programs born out of necessity became a cornerstone of Canada's safety net, and the pain of those years sparked political change, from social credit to the Cooperative Commonwealth Federation, which led the groundwork for modern social policies. Today, the prairies are thriving, with fields stretching to the horizon. But the ghosts of the dirty 30s linger in the stories of families who endured, in abandoned towns along the Saskatchewan Ghost Town Trail, and in lessons we carry forward. The Dust Bowl taught Canada about resilience, the need for sustainable land use, and value of diversifying our economy. And it's also a reminder that even in the toughest times, Canadians find a way to rebuild and move forward. Thanks for joining me on this journey through Canadian history. Hit like and subscribe for more insights into Canada's history, economics, politics, and real estate. Until the next one.